If you look at the public persona of Punjabi pop star Sunanda Sharma, you see a brand built on the ideals of innocent, enduring romance. Her hit songs sell millions of listeners on the concept of pure, unwavering love. But behind the scenes, that romantic ideal was colliding with a brutal reality. While she was publicly singing about unconditional love, she was privately enduring a 250 crore financial fraud, systematic character assassination, and a devastating betrayal by the team closest to her. We are culturally conditioned to view unconditional loyalty as the highest possible virtue. Society teaches us that self-sacrifice in a relationship, whether personal or professional, is noble and expected. Psychology tells a different story. When a giver offers loyalty without conditions, they fail to establish boundaries. Without a cutoff valve, the taker has absolutely no incentive to stop draining the source. This exact dynamic kept Sunanda professionally and emotionally paralyzed for 8 full years. She stayed in a toxic environment, operating under the assumption that her dedication would eventually be rewarded. In a system with zero boundaries, the source eventually runs dry. Loyalty without the leverage to leave is a mechanism that makes exploitation a certainty. The most severe damage a person can suffer rarely comes from an outside competitor. It comes from the inner circle. These are the people who know exactly where your armor is weakest. Sunanda's inner circle weaponized their intimate access to her life. They used their knowledge of her daily operations to dismantle her finances, tarnish her professional reputation with rumors, and destabilize her emotionally. They timed their strike with surgical precision. Abusers often exploit vulnerability by making their move immediately after a personal tragedy. For Sunanda, the deepest cuts came right after her father's death, when she was too worn down to fight back. In the fallout, the myth of an industry safety net dissolved. High-profile peers and elites who had promised her support completely vanished. Once her leverage and wealth were gone, those promises evaporated. The only real support came from an unexpected place. A peer named Rajveer Tawanda, who had quietly shown up to her father's funeral, stepped in. Without seeking public credit, he organized the logistics for her first comeback show and secured her the resources she needed to perform. A support system is a dangerous illusion if it relies entirely on the goodwill of others. Empty promises thrive where power is unbalanced, and you only discover who your true allies are when you have absolutely nothing left to offer. Coming out of that crisis, Sunanda arrived at a stark realization. Her emotional loyalty was easily weaponized against her for one specific reason: she didn't have the money to walk away. This is financial agency. Without it, a toxic dynamic forms an endless loop. Currency is required to break that loop and create boundaries to protect your emotional currency. She redefined wealth as a defensive perimeter, a shield ensuring her no carries weight. Today, spending 3.5 lakh on a jacket acts as a psychological insurance policy. It is a visible boundary proving she can no longer be cornered or controlled. Acquiring this financial leverage gave her the capacity to dictate her own terms. She now chooses her collaborators freely, sets firm boundaries, and commands her career on her own schedule. Money cannot buy genuine happiness, and it certainly cannot buy trust, but it buys the freedom to refuse abuse, and that freedom is the absolute prerequisite for finding true loyalty. Sunanda's current focus has shifted. She prioritizes her own judgment and self-reliance over external validation. Instead of turning bitter or cynical, she redirected her capacity for loyalty. She moved her trust away from toxic individuals and shifted it upward, finding peace through a deep spiritual surrender. She also looked backward to a childhood trauma. As a young girl, teachers would pull her out of school assemblies by her braids, publicly humiliating her in front of all her peers because her family couldn't afford to pay her school fees. With her newly acquired wealth and independence, she now funds the education of 9 children. 2 of those children are fully sponsored and studying in that exact same school where she was once shamed. This act of philanthropy is the ultimate demonstration of reclaimed power. She took the geographic site of her greatest humiliation and rewrote it into the site of her greatest legacy. Offering blind loyalty to another person becomes a massive liability if you haven't first secured an uncompromising loyalty to yourself. True loyalty is never blind submission. It is a conscious, empowered choice, and it is a choice you can only make when you possess the financial and emotional independence to walk away at any time.